All right, here we are back again. A lifetime of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And today, I'm going to talk about PF.
PF, all right.
It is precision fermentation.
Precision fermentation.
Not something anybody really would be like, oh, I know what that is. Like most people wouldn't. And it's fairly new, but not really.
Was it for like making booze or something?
You'd think. So for tens of thousands of years, we've been fermenting yeast and bacteria to make kimchi, cabbage, sauerkraut, beer, wine, right? It's all pretty basic. And we use what? We use yeast.
Yeast, sugar.
Basic. Yeast, sugar, water, right? And then they multiply and they ferment, creating the gas, creating it. And it happens in nature. You know, when fruit falls from trees and it rots on the ground, it ferments.
Yeah.
And
a squirrel eats it. And
gets a little drunk and shit, right? Yeah. So it's been happening in nature. We've done it personally for 10,000 years plus. But yet...
The Trappist monks, I think, did it a lot.
Sure. I mean, you probably couldn't pinpoint the exact date because it was used in so many facets of human civilization.
And they were so wasted they forgot to write it down anyway.
Right.
Like, when did we start doing that again? I think it was in 1921.
So, I mean, all beer aside, it has different meaning in today's society. So what precision fermentation is it uses genetically modified microorganisms to produce specific proteins, enzymes, and compounds. So when people hear that, they think GMO, genetically modified crops, right? You know, and I'm like, and I still don't understand when people get all butthurt over genetically modified stuff, because we've been doing that for 10,000 years. We did it in hundreds of years scales as opposed to decades worth of scales. So when corn, do you ever see what corn looked like before it looked like corn today?
God. It looked like King Charles's teeth.
Right, it was like the size of your, and it was like the size of your thumb, right? It was terrible, and you needed 50,000 of them to make any one. So we took the best of the best of the best of the best of the best, right, until we came up with what we needed. Now, when they genetically modify a crop, it's basically cutting and pasting genes to make them more resilient to drought, to to
insects.
pesticides, to insects, right? So there's some reason, but it generally doesn't change us. We're pretty adaptable. You know, there's probably more worry about plastic in our food, body, and blood than there is about the genetically modified crops. But what makes precision fermentation interesting is that this is the new age agriculture. So it's companies that are literally using microorganisms to grow the food. It's the lab meat. You've heard about it, how they're growing meat in a lab.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's precision fermentation. But now it's not, we only hear what the headlines will tell us. I mean, I've been following it for years because it's stupidly interesting. I don't understand. I'm not a microbiologist. I don't understand any of this shit. Right. But I understand the necessity and where it'll go. So people, you freak out. I'm not eating meat grown in a lab. There is nothing different about that meat and the meat from a cow. Nothing. It is genetically identical. So you took let's say a sample from that part of the cow in that meat. You do a biopsy, right? We do biopsies fucking every moment of every day in every hospital in the world to diagnose things, right? And they go in, they snip out a little part of your liver, and they do a test, and that's a biopsy. Same thing. So they took that meat out of the cow and they grew it. Genetically identical, but technically not from the cow. They engineered microorganisms, bacterias, enzymes, and yeasts and sugars to the building blocks of life to create life in the laboratory. This is new agriculture.
So, so if they take a biopsy from a cow and they do this, what shape does it go in? Does it go into the shape of a cow, or just
but the shape is designed by what it's grown in. And also, I think it's a genetic blueprint. I can't do it justice because I'm not professional. Yeah. But from my understanding is that the meat takes a shape because what is DNA? DNA is a blueprint. It basically tells your cells what to do. And that's why stem cells are so important in science, because they are all cells. They can become anything. They can be turned into, they can change into, right? But I think that's part of the genome. Now, I'm getting really specific on the meat because I was using it as an example.
Mm-hmm. But I have a question about the meat. Suppose you wanted a ribeye.
Okay, right. So you're talking about you would have to
take the meat from there, the rib.
But wherever that part of the ribeye comes from, because there would be a part of I can't go back.
The best part of the ribeye is that fat gristle that renders when you cook it.
Which they do, like I've seen what they grow, and they do have the melding of the fat into the meat. You may not have the edge so thick, but that's all programmed into the growth, not from what's already grown. So when you think about a cow, you only get 4% out of the cow than what you put into it. So you grow a cow to the full age, and then we're going to butcher it. So you're only getting 4% out of that cow from what you put in. So 96% was lost in food, feces, gases, burping, flatulence,
blood.
Right. But even that stuff, they use every part of the animal. Most people don't realize it, but they do. Even the hooves all the way down. It is used for something. It's not, but that's still only 4% of the lifetime of what it took to grow the cow, right? But the idea of something like precision fermentation in a large scale. Now, I'm talking industrial scale. It's not going to be for the next 5 to 10 years until they get to that point. But you're using 99% less of what you needed to grow that cow. Now, we can't do it now because it's too expensive and it's infant technology. But it's used in more things than you think. Like, they even came away to use yeast and sugar to spin very fine silk threads that is actually almost identical to the silk that is created from silkworms. So they synthetically created silk.
And that's strong.
But it's not, yes, and it is. And it's thin, it can be woven into fibers, and it's natural, right? So there's no polymers, there's no plastics, there's no PETs. There's nothing in there that's going to not biodegrade, because it's just sugar and fucking water, right? That is chemically turned into what the actual silkworm already does, right? I don't know if you've ever seen them actually harvest silkworms. It's pretty fucking amazing. They have like rows and rows and rows of cabinets of silkworms, and they just run these things over them, and they're constantly pulling the silk off, spindling it. It's wild. But the idea is that instead of having you still have to feed them, you still have to do this. Industrial scales, that's what they use precision fermentation for now. Basically, it's cell culturing. They grow it in a lab, and they scrape off the cells, and all they need is the genome from the cow. Like, they need the actual genetic structure broken down. I mean, we did it in humans. If we can genetically break down a human, we can pretty much break down every animal for the most part that there is. But it would be time and energy and money. Why do we need to do this?
So the better we get at this, the more I think, how do we know something didn't make us?
All right, you went philosophical on something. That's true. Sure. I mean, at that point,
I'm not saying it happened. I'm just
no. That's absolutely plausible.
We're doing it now.
But the idea that you could take, instead of the biggest thing would be cheese and milk. If you can just create the protein that you get from milk synthetically, it's not even synthetic. I can't even say synthetic. It is actually the same thing. It's just you created a different system to get it. All the whey proteins, all the dairy proteins, all the egg proteins can be put into products without ever using the animal.
So instead of the animal putting all these different pieces of the puzzle together, we're collecting them independently and putting them together ourselves.
And it's strictly on, and we talked about this in other episodes, data. It is literally data. They can store I think it was like the genetic, like when they decode a cow's genome, you can fit it onto a home computer nowadays, like in a terabyte worth of data. That's how, that doesn't even, like, you can't even fathom what a server farm in Kansas somewhere underground looks like, right? Like acres and acres and acres of fucking servers holding all of the data when we call it the cloud. You know, it's kind of funny that we call it the cloud and the cloud is underground, you know. But
I have a terabyte sitting over there.
yeah, I mean, I got a terabyte sitting in front of me, right? This is a terabyte. This is a home.
There was no such thing.
No, there wasn't even a number. It wasn't even conceived. So that was the idea, that we couldn't do this because we couldn't process the information. We couldn't hold it. But now what we have to do is, now that we have the information, now we have to have large-scale industry create the product, because most of these companies that are doing this are only creating the product. So they would make a grown, let's say, dairy protein, and then they would sell it to ice cream companies. They would sell it to this company that uses proteins. You know, maybe like powdered milk. Right? That powdered milk still came from milk. But if the powdered milk didn't come from milk, it was created as powdered milk, then you didn't need the cow, which takes away, like they were looking at it as the meat thing, too far away. Like you can't grow enough to feed people what you'd need, right? But you could take out the dairy industry. You could, and it would be less likely that there would be diseases, because it's a controlled, sterile environment. So you wouldn't have things like mad cow. There wouldn't be spoiling. You know, like a cow, they have to be milked. If they're not milked, it actually goes sour in the udders, like in the body. So at that point, like, again, you're just taking out parts of the whole thing. But my whole angle of this, is to talk about it is one thing. I think it's interesting. I mean, scientifically, it's fucking amazing. The fact that they created silk from sugar and yeast, right, and spun it into a thread that was actually viable to use, is that in itself is phenomenal. That's like when they made the spider goat. You ever hear of the spider goat thing?
No.
Oh, that's great, man. I really thought it was bullshit. It is literally exactly what it sounds. They mixed the genome of a goat and a spider, and when
who did this? Marvel or DC?
Right, you think, and this is. I thought the same thing, and this is over like 20 years ago.
Spider goat, 8 arms coming at you.
Yeah. So when they milk the goat, spider threads, silk is produced in the milk, and then they can take it out. They filter it out. Now it has. I know. I mean, look it up. I mean, I was skeptical too, and you should be, because it sounds insane. But it just shows that was an early stage of things. Now we're like, we don't need the spider or the goat. We do this. So now here's the real question, and this is what I really liked. I understand vegetarians. I understand vegans. I understand their reasonings. I don't agree with it. I don't care, personally. You can eat whatever you want. That's your business, right? Just like religion and belief and politics. Everyone has their own opinion. That's fine. But here's the real question. If meat is grown from a cell that never actually came from a living animal that was never actually killed, is it vegan?
That's a good question.
That is the most profound question, because their whole basis of their dietary thing is that it that it was killed, the animal was killed, that it was no fish, no dairy, no product of the animal, which means that they don't even drink the milk of a cow. We didn't kill it. We take care of her. We brush her every day. We feed her grass, and you won't even drink the milk? It's free. It's right there. Okay, that's why I said I don't get it.
I don't either, because but suppose they only eat lettuce. So we're going to pick all the lettuce and all the vegetables. Now the animal has no food to eat. We're going to spray all the vegetables with pesticides, so we're going to be killing all the mosquitoes that the frogs need to eat.
Right, the balance.
So I mean, come on.
And then also, even if you did spray them with, let's say, pesticides, and then you fed it to the cow,
Yeah.
Then it goes to the cow. And then if you plan to eat that cow, where do you think that goes? Right back to us. And that's why we go back to the microplastics in our bodies, because it's mainly from fish. Because the fish are eating the plastic, and the plastic is in the fish's body, and then we eat the fish, and then it just gets smaller and smaller, and that's how it ends up in our blood, right? This is the extreme long term that they found is happening.
Eventually, we're all going to be action figures.
yeah, pretty much. Karate chop, judo chop.
I'd like you to meet my son, He-Man.
But yeah, that question alone is really what got me. Like, does that classify?
No.
But you're not vegan, and neither am I.
Right.
So without having a vegan to understand, is it a sociological thing? Is it a belief structure thing? Is it a physiological thing? Moral, right? So if it's moral, we just solved it.
Right.
Because we didn't kill a cow. We biopsied it, and that was the cow before the cow before the cow. We only needed one sample. Once we had the sample, we genetically broke that down and we created it with enzymes and proteins and bacteria, which is pretty much the way everything works.
So
right?
so in 100 years, if you could eventually grow a human being in a petri dish and you kill it before it's born, is that abortion?
Right. The island.
Yeah.
Or we grow people for extra parts.
Oh, that would be awesome.
The movie, The Island.
Oh, I never saw it.
Oh,
It's
it's
like
wild.
It's like a human junkyard.
It's a whole clone island, and they don't know they're clones, but people grew them in case you had heart failure. You have a perfect clone of the heart instead of waiting for a donor that matches. You're right there. But they don't know they're clones, right? So, yes, that's the extreme. Let's, of course, go existential extreme to all. But we wouldn't have to do that because we would just grow the heart. That's the point. Right. This is what I'm saying. We don't need to grow the fucking human, put them on an island, and tell them that it's paradise. We just grew the heart. Left out all the rest. I don't need the liver right now. I don't need the ears. Who cares about the hair, right? We don't need all that. We just grew the heart. Now, I think we'll eventually get there as well, but that's the futurist in me, the hopeful optimism of our scientific, future. Right. But we're doing it with food, and you won't even notice it. Like, you buy cheese. Do you even know how, like, you go to the store, we buy American cheese. I'll take a pound of American cheese, please.
It's not
yellow
cheese.
Or white. I'm like, what does it fucking matter? It's yellow number 5.
Yeah,
I don't care.
color.
Give me the white.
Yeah.
Yellow tastes better. No, it doesn't. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't taste yellow number 5. You're a moron. But that's fine. You have your opinion. You have your political opinions. You have your religious opinions. Have your yellow cheese. Do you know how that cheese is made?
It's processed.
Can you make it? Because I can't. Right? So I can't make my own American cheese. But we go to the store and we still bought that pound of American cheese. But it was made with precision fermentation that was the whey proteins for the dairy, for the cheese, was created in a lab. It never came from a cow, but it's exactly the same. It is genetically exactly the same.
Yeah,
but people are going to go, I'm not eating that shit.
Why?
Right? I know, but that's my point.
Was there American cheese 100 million years ago?
There wasn't even American cheese 100 years ago, I don't think, because it's really like a processed thing. We had all kinds of different cheeses, but I was using that as an example because American cheese is terrible, by the way. Eat any other cheese.
When the Big Bang happened, was there filet mignon? No. Okay, so who cares how it got here?
Right. Well, we care how
just
it got there.
Just be happy that you're not hungry.
Right. But in a lot of ways, most of these processes will save not only land, energy, water, food, fuel, right, money, that intangible number, the millions of numbers, all that stuff, and solve the problems of things like the climate change from too much cattle, too much this, too much
flagellants.
And it's funny how burps. It's not even the farts; it's the burps of the cows that actually contribute the most methane to the greenhouse effect.
And then we eat them, and then what's the first thing we do after we eat them?
Or you get the meat sweats, depending on how much you ate. Oh, I hate the meat sweats.
Man, I got the meat sweats.
You just start sweating because you ate too much meat. You're eating too much meat when you start getting the meat sweats. But that was my point. It was kind of the socialistic angle of when these stories start to take effect and people start to actually pay attention to them, they automatically fly off the handle with like, I'm not doing it. Then don't. But it's better, and eventually you won't know. Yeah. Here's something interesting, and this is fun. A beaver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Love them.
They're amazing animals. They are eco.
Oh, the animals. Yeah.
Okay.
Love them too.
I agree with both. They're eco changers. Like they are like elephants. They are one of the few animals that can change the environment that they live in for hundreds of other animals in their environment. Inadvertently, they don't even know they're doing it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Oh shit! Yeah, that's kind of like when they introduced the coyotes back into the
or
the wolves.
The wolves into Yellowstone because it lowered the elk population and it brought balance because you took away something that because we're moron undereducated farmers, which I get. I don't want you eating all my sheep, so let's just kill them all. Right. That solved the problem, but you created another problem, right? Yes. So all that aside. What comes to mind if I said vanilla and beavers?
Comes out of their ass.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's called castoreum.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the artificial vanilla?
It's not artificial.
Because I know.
But that's not artificial. Yeah. That's biological.
Yeah, okay.
And it just so happens that the goo from a beaver's asshole tastes like vanilla. And we still put it in vanilla flavoring to this day.
I eat it right off of the rim. Are you kidding me? It's even better if we ever have it fresh.
All about what you just said was disgusting. But now, I mean, I've worked in even fine dining or high-end restaurants, and you get a vanilla bean. Now, there is nothing on this planet that can substitute a vanilla bean.
Right.
Nothing. They are stupidly expensive.
Oh, my God.
But they are absolutely worth it, especially making creme brulee or fresh creme or anything you want. If you use vanilla bean, nothing is going to substitute. But when you look at it on a scale of industrial levels, we were using the goo from a beaver's asshole to use in flavoring for vanilla for 50 years.
That's great. How did they get it, though? Whose job was that?
How did they even figure that out? Like, that's like that. It's not the fact. Like, did it smell like vanilla? Like, how do you even get the beaver?
Okay, first of all, there was
trappers, maybe trappers back in the day, like hunters.
No,
when they were skinning, they were like, "Hey, man, this smells kind of funny."
It was some pervert in like Arkansas. So, hey, come here, you little beaver. You got nice teeth. Hey, Cletus, you ain't gonna believe this shit.
This beaver's ass smells like ice cream.
Man, he's eating briars.
But my whole point to that was that we took, again, something that you think is synthetic, but not. It's literally, that is as much biological as you can get. It's just not exactly what we thought it was. But it's close enough to be something that people don't even know. Like, if you had vanilla that had castoreum in it, that came from a beaver's asshole, or you had... Now, the difference between... You ever had imitation vanilla flavoring?
Probably.
Like extract.
Yeah.
If you had imitation...
Yeah, we used to put it in our milkshakes.
And pure. Yeah, but we use pure.
Yeah.
We didn't use imitation. If you taste the difference, imitation is disgusting. It tastes like imitation. If you took pure,
like a beaver's asshole.
Now, whether pure is made from a castoreum or a synthetic or an actual vanilla bean, different story. But all it is chemicals. All it is just getting those chemicals exactly as it was from the product. So that's the whole point of the precision fermentation. We're agriculturally going to press forward in the future by bioengineering on a microscopic scale. That's it. We think chemicals like a Twinkie. Here's a good example.
Oh, frog asshole.
Twinkie was one of the first synthetically made. There's no food.
Yeah, there's no food
in a Twinkie. I think there's a little bit, like a tiny bit of egg powder protein or some shit like that. But technically, it's like 98.8% synthetic.
Yeah.
And we eat it. A lot of them totally went out of business.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I had one, but they are very tasty.
But it's a Twinkie. It tastes like a Twinkie. It's always a Twinkie. You know, and that whole like Twinkies last forever. False.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah, nothing lasts forever except
nothing
for McDonald's.
Lasts forever, right? But the idea is that we were eating something that actually truly was synthetic, and we didn't complain about it. Tasted delicious.
Well, they had Twinkie the Kid whipping his lasso around, wearing.
Oh, that's right. The
with the bandana
figure.
or whatever.
I wasn't a big Twinkie fan, but the idea of it. I don't know.
And then they also had artificial prostitutes called ho-hos. They were great. They came in pairs. And do you know what one? Yeah. And do you know what goes great
Two for one.
Do you know what goes great in a ho-ho? A ding dong.
Oh, my dad still buys those. He just had some the other day.
Oh, God.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But also, just to throw in one more positive, when you think about it, so anything created, you could take the lactose out of how, like, people are lactose intolerant. So they could technically have dairy without having dairy. So these things can be, you can pick and choose. Like, if you have an allergen, you can take that part out. So they would have different product lines that had different uses in different cases for different. Now, again, it's going to all go into the Impossible Burger is a perfect example. Have you ever had one?
Yes, I did.
Burger King. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Does it taste like a burger?
No.
No.
It's
is
salty
it bad?
as hell.
No.
Yeah.
But it's not a burger. We know that. You automatically. But to make it bleed, they use, I think it's called M-E-M-E. It's a type of protein.
Myoglobin.
It's something like that, but it's the process of how the meat bleeds.
Yeah, the myoglobin is
they take it from plants.
Blood. Oh, okay.
Right, but they actually derive it from a plant.
Oh, boy.
To make it look like blood, right? To have the consistency, to keep the moisture level in, to give you that you can go medium rare to well done, so you have that. But they've created it. So but people are still buying it. Like if the Impossible Burger didn't work, fucking Burger King would have taken it off the menu. Like the McRib. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Can you find one right now?
Once a year.
Or something like that. You even want to know what's in that?
Oh, I'm sure it's worse than beaver asshole.
Yeah, tenfold worse than beaver asshole. But it didn't sell. In some places it did. They took it off the menu. If it didn't work, they would just take it off. But the idea is that we're working to a creative future that,
I love the McRib.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Until every once in a while you find like some little chipped bone in there, and you just realize that we're probably just eating whatever was left of the pig that was ground down into some processed hooves and beaks and bills and teeth.
And then you taste the pickles and the onions, and you're like, okay, I'm back on board.
The onions were good.
I'm back on board.
But yeah, so that's all I got for that.
That's good. That's really
Not bad.
Interesting. Yeah, I learned a lot.
It's just we're looking for a sustainable future. That's all we talk about nowadays is global warming, sustainable future. And we should be. We should at least be talking about it because the actual process to making change is very slow. And it's faster than I think it's ever have been with solar and wind and vertical farming and different ways and hydroponic growth. Because I think agriculture is one of our biggest mistakes in the last 100 years is that we haven't changed it. It is the same. We are wasting way more than we're gaining when we don't have to. But all of these things, and I said everyone's always looking for that one thing that's going to change the world.
The magic pill.
The magic pill. It doesn't exist. No. They're all magic pills. We have to accept and understand and utilize all of them to make a bottle of magic pills.
But the problem, especially with agriculture, you could tell all the people in the agricultural industry, okay, do you know what? In 50 years, this is going to be way, way better, but we have to change all of this now. All of them are going to say, yeah, but that's going to cost us all of our money.
We can't afford that. Absolutely. No,
and my children and my grandchildren.
That's exactly why I said that we've been doing it wrong for 100 years. I mean, when the government subsidizes farmers to not grow, okay.
Yeah.
Really? How about subsidize them with new technologies to grow better? Or subsidize them instead of giving them trailers to do greenhouse trailers with hydroponics and micro sprayers to control and give them knowledge, teach them right. What is it? The whole fish. You give a man a fish he eats for a day, teach a man a fish he eats for a lifetime.
Right.
That is the literal term for that whole thing. But we've gone hundreds of years, 100 years at least with the technology we've had, and we're still doing it. We're starting to change. But you're right, and it's just money. These farmers do not have it easy. Not only is their job fucking hard, but the fluctuation between food pricing and everything that they have to go through. Water itself. We're going to run out of water. I mean, we're not, but places on Earth will. Because we have tons of water here, right? Florida, man, we're not running out of water.
Right.
Okay, you can siphon canal water and purify it, and it's fine.
Easily.
With
a monolithic water filter.
Right, and that's nothing. And that's just canal water, right? We're not going to run out of water. But places like Saudi Arabia, where their population keeps growing, but their aquifers keep dwindling, and they're in the fucking desert. Now, we have plenty of water, but how do we get it to them? Right?
That's not my problem. I don't live in the desert.
All right,
idiot.
I understand.
Yeah, but the oil is here. Well, fuck you.
Right, but they're also realizing too that the oil is we're taking a turn. That the world is changing, and that oil is not the commodity anymore. But they're also realizing that.
Well, it is, but not forever.
It is, but it's right. It's not going to be something that's going to be sustainable. But my point was that. It's like space. Like you think of like all the asteroids that are out there, and they're all filled with. I love those fucking like like the news reports. $1 trillion asteroid.
Yeah.
This asteroid has more precious minerals than all of Earth combined.
Go get it.
All right, well, we can't fucking get it. You know what's more precious and valuable than all of those minerals?
The children.
Water. No, water. Water in space, because you can make oxygen. We need water to live, and we can make fuel, right? Because without those three things, we can't get the $1 trillion fucking asteroid anyway. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. So the idea is that water of the future is the new gold. Like, where the money should be based off water.
And air.
Well, air we're doing okay with.
Here's a bag of air. Hey, that was a fork. Gotcha.
Like Spaceballs, where he's got the Perrier.
Oh,
because the air quality was really bad on their planet, and he cracked it open. He's like, yeah, Mr. President. But I think that there's another thing too. The Perrier was the example of the bottled water.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you? Why do we need bottled water if you have like you said, if you have even a filtration in your house and it's coming out of your faucet, it's the same thing as the bottled water.
Yeah. Where do you think they fill the bottle?
Yeah.
Oh, well, hey, you know what? You give a man vanilla ice cream, he'll eat vanilla ice cream for a day. If you teach him how to look a beaver's asshole, he'll eat vanilla ice cream for the rest of his life.
And you know what? Like, I mean, I'm a culinary major. I went to actual culinary school, and no one ever taught us about that. They never mentioned that. That was never a thing. It was the vanilla bean. Yeah. But this is my point when I talked about it. Like, they're like, oh, you're gonna work in famous restaurants and you're gonna wear the hat and make lots of money. It's like, no, you're gonna work in commercial like garbage places to move up the ranks to get to the better place, right? But they don't teach you about castoreum and beaver ass flavorings and your garbage vanilla that you get in a fucking tub.
Nope.
Back in the old days, can we actually say that now? Yeah, I can't believe I just fucking said that.
Yes, we can.
How old are you? They would send the ice cream at Perkins back in the day, and we would get dry ice with it.
Really?
Like blocks of dry ice would come in the styrofoam container with the ice cream, and it was like, that's how it kept it cold, because they didn't have a refrigeration unit on the truck, so it was just stored in the styrophones with the dry ice. So there's no need for a refrigeration unit. And we'd take the dry ice and put it around the kitchen and water, and we'd make all the,
That's funny.
So, nostalgia aside, there you go. That's what I have. Precision fermentation, people. It is the future. Well, it's a future. And beaver assholes.
Yes, that was two things. Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. Dave, that was good. Thanks for bringing that up. That was interesting.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to a lifetime of conversations. Dave and Rob out.
Peace.